Kirby Smart's not complacent with where the dogs are at right now. This is what he had to say that caught my attention on Monday. He said, "We've got to improve everywhere, starting with every unit." Now, listen, at first, this is just me talking right now. That's a little bit of, that's kind of obvious in many ways. I mean, we're only in the second game of the season here for Georgia. It also avoids really talking about any one spot that Georgia really has to improve on. But anyway, here's further what he said. He said, we have to improve in every facet. That includes throwing the ball, running the ball. It includes defensively stopping the run and rushing the passer. So that's always going to be the case. And he starts talking about the Sanford game. I thought we did run the ball well Saturday, but again, it's a little different front, a little different coverage in terms of the way they played. When you're getting 4 or 5 yards of rush, it's hard to complain about that. You have to do that at a higher level. You have to do it at a higher level against a better opponent. Um, that was, I think really the only real criticism from Saturday was not converting touchdowns in the red zone for Georgia. I mean, that was really, excuse me, kind of the problem. He goes on to talk about this by talking about the run game in the red area. He says, "I think you have to run to win tight ball games to be good to be a good physical team. There's not a lack of confidence in our run game for me." And it is kind of nitpicky, and I participate in this to criticize or whatever you want to call it when you got someone like Kendall Milton going for 8.5 yards a run. Kirby goes on to say, "I think people look at statistics and that's all they look at. I look at what we have asked our guys to do, and there's a lot of things that you don't understand, talking about the media, that you guys don't understand about football. When you talk about the passing game and yardage, I'd say probably 30 to 40% of the plays you're calling a pass or yardage is a run play, and they can be very successful run plays. The question is, are they more successful as a run play or more successful when we decide to throw the ball out of that run play?" He's saying they've got multiple options in these plays. He says there's an evaluation for us. The evaluation for us is those plays are running plays, and a lot of times we put them in rushing yardage because they're actually replacing rushing yardage. I know that's really complicated, but that's the look at it. We're not evaluating it just on the times that we run the ball. I actually don't think that's that hard of a concept to understand. There's plenty of times where short passes have, for decades, been discussed as long handoffs. So I don't think the concept he's talking about is really that complicated. But my criticism, if you want to call it that, is just that I mean, they didn't score touchdowns in the red zone, and they did that against Oregon, almost at Arkansas, and so you didn't hear about that. I mean, Stetson, I think, had a run in for a touchdown in the red zone. How much more of Stetson would you be using? But when you don't see Kendall and Kenny get into the end zone every single time they get the ball, people are going to pick up on that in the red zone. So I don't know. Sometimes Kirby, he quite clearly knows a lot about football, vastly more than the media. But the results speak for themselves. And when you don't score in the red zone, you don't score in the red zone. And, it doesn't matter how little or how much someone who's asking the question knows about football. The results are the results. So, I'm not a chef, but I know what bad food tastes like. And it usually comes with a Pepsi. So, those of us who don't order Pepsi know what I'm talking about. Hey, pick up DAWGSTRUCTION today. I do remember, look at this moment from Kirby Smart. This was a very fortunate photograph in many ways. It's being in the right place at the right time, but that was really the biggest time that he celebrated in Georgia's win over Alabama. Are they going to beat Alabama again this season? I think that's a question a lot of people are wondering. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is down below. I know people are watching these videos now that we're in the fall and maybe have not seen that. So thanks for taking a look at it. The link is down below. I think for Georgia coming up this week against South Carolina, this is a Carolina team that they got to say. I mean, if Kirby and them got work to do, South Carolina definitely has some issues to work on. When you look at just statistically speaking, we're only 2 games through this. Um, South Carolina is not performing the way that you would like to in many particular situations. But Georgia again is cranking out top 10 situations. They are number 10 in total offense and number one in scoring defense. Now, what does that actually mean? Those are not the same thing. Total offense is the amount of yards. Scoring offense, which is you'd much prefer to be top 10 at. Georgia's number 8 in the country in that. So excuse me, I misspoke. Total defense, they're number 8. Um, you would much rather be number 1 or top 10 in scoring offense than total offense. But scoring a total offense typically leads to scoring offense. Georgia is at tied for 33rd in the country right now. In that they're again number 1 in scoring defense and number 8 in total defense. It's really, really hard for an SEC team to be number 1 in scoring defense, as in total defense. That the offenses are just too good. Uh, what I was going to try to spit out here about South Carolina, when you look at the situation for the Gamecocks, they are really not where you want to be on a couple of levels. First of all, they had to have 2 block punts against Georgia State. I believe it was 2 to really get going in that game. Those setup touchdowns. That's not that's not the way you want to score about half of your points. Um, they are not getting the job done running the ball. They're not even at 60 yards a game. They are not getting it done stopping the run. They are allowing almost 250 yards a game. Georgia should smother South Carolina in this game. And if there's a problem running the ball, which doesn't seem like that's the case to me necessarily, generally speaking, then you'll know it Saturday because Georgia won't be able to run the ball and they won't be able to stop the run. I can assure you they're going to be stopping the run against South Carolina. It's just that's what's going to happen. Um, I mean, if Carolina's not running on Georgia State, if Carolina's not running on Arkansas, I actually think there's not tons of shame not running against Arkansas. But when you're sitting there and you only have um, let me get to this real quick. I'm going straight to the Georgia Southern situation, Georgia State situation. Excuse me. They only had 102 yards against against Georgia State rushing. That is just not good enough. Period. So I think to me when Kirby talks about how much they can kind of get better this week. Georgia State was beating South Carolina in the third quarter. And we can talk about any number of things in terms of ways teams look. I'll give people the first sort of 20 minutes of games. I'm not going to give you the first half to get it right. That's too long. So when you're watching Carolina goofing around with Georgia State, I mean, that's not going to get it done. And then, here's Carolina up 20-14, blocking a punt in the third quarter um, to score a touchdown, and then to kind of close the game out to get up 35-14, they block another punt um, near the uh, near the end zone to score a touchdown. So 2 block punts for a touchdown. Now Shane Beamer comes from a long line, meaning his dad, of being able to excel on special teams. If you want to lose a game to South Carolina, the number one way to do that is get 14 points scored against you in special teams. But I just I don't see it. I don't see it happening this weekend. But I do think the thing to track here is, and we're 2 games into it, Georgia's scoring about 40 points a game. They're not even allowing a touchdown in a game. So they're allowing a point and a half a game. I was going to say half a touchdown. They're not even allowing that. At some stage, South Carolina or someone's going to score on Georgia. But right now, this team, this team, I think you want to play as well as you can all the time. And I think against Samford, they played pretty well. They just kicked some field goals. So there's no reason to get too fired up about it. But I do think Georgia can win this in an extremely decisive way against South Carolina. I don't know if I've convinced myself of that. I thought Carolina fought pretty hard in the second half against Arkansas. They kind of they fought a lot of the game, but it wasn't. Um, they didn't they just were not competitive enough really late in that game. I don't know if they just sort of I need to watch the fourth quarter. That's the one part I didn't really get a shot to see. But I mean, midway through the third, there's Carolina down 5. I mean, it looked like they were getting blown out 21-3, but they were only down 5, so they kind of rallied a little bit in the at the end of the half and then midway through the third. But I don't see it right now. And for any criticism of Georgia or kind of where they're at, that's fine. But they just this Carolina team is not in Georgia's universe. And it's been a long time since we've said that, like for this many years in a row. And for all of y'all who just love to get your Larry Munson on, yeah, South Carolina beat Georgia in 2019. That was when Georgia was scoring about, I mean, 20 something points a game. It wasn't good enough. And that's how you get beat in upsets. Turn the ball over multiple times, pick sixes. I mean, if South Carolina scores 21 points on non-offensive touchdowns like they did in 2011, they can totally win this game. But that just gets them to 21 points. I'm not sure that they can continue to score that many points in a row. This season, they've scored, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 touchdowns on offense. It's got to be more than that. There's 5. They've scored 6 touchdowns on offense in 3 games. So that's 3 a game. That's 21 points. I don't think they score more than a touchdown and a half, maybe against Georgia. I'm thinking somewhere around 10 points. But we'll see. And I know it's a tough place to play there, man. It is. That Georgia, you know, in terms of Georgia dealing, I don't think it's out of the question that Georgia's defense outscores South Carolina, and I'll talk about that in another video.